How dare you change the credit card password and have them declined? I had bills to pay. I was embarrassed today in front of the cashier. Terence, my son screamed before his fist slammed into my face last night. I tasted blood immediately. The metallic taste filled my mouth as my lips split open. That's my card and money. I have every right over it, I shouted with tears and fear gripping all over me. Upstairs, my 2-year-old granddaughter Maya screamed. His wife Jasmine, my daughter-in-law, begged him to stop, her voice breaking with terror. My son Terence has always been like this, taking control of everything that concerns me, my money, credit card, and house, using violence. But I didn't see my son at that moment. I saw my ex-husband, Charles, same rage burning in his eyes, same clenched fist, just a different face. I spent 2 decades raising him to become the very monster I'd run from. He stormed out of my house with my credit cards in his hand, thinking I'd forgive him like I always did. Thinking tomorrow morning would be just another day where his mother made excuses and pretended nothing happened. This morning, I woke up at dawn with a bruised face and made a decision. I pulled out our finest china, the porcelain my mother left me that I'd been saving for special occasions. I set the table carefully. I cooked his favourite breakfast, Belgian waffles with strawberries, crispy bacon, everything he loved. When he came home expecting his usual meal and my usual silence, he found something else waiting at that breakfast table. If you want to know what happened next, subscribe because this story gets intense. And let me ask you something. If your own child hurt you, could you do what I did? Leave your answer in the comments. Let me tell you how we got here. My name is Vanessa Clark. I'm 52 years old, a school librarian in a quiet suburban district. Students called me Ms. Clark, came to me with book recommendations, shared their secrets with me. I was the gentle woman who helped everyone. But that wasn't the whole story. 23 years ago, I was a young librarian married to Charles Clark. Our apartment was small, but it was filled with hope. Then Terence was born. Charles changed overnight. The pressure of fatherhood hit him hard. Financial stress mounted. Job instability followed. These were the excuses I made while I hid bruises under long sleeves at work. When Terence was 4 years old, he watched his father scream at me. He watched Charles throw dishes against our walls. When Terence was 5, he hid under his bed, while Charles punched holes through the drywall. By the time my son was 6 years old, he started mimicking his father's aggressive posture when he got angry. He shoved other kids at school. Teachers called me. I made excuses every single time. He's just adjusting, I told them. Boys will be boys. But I knew the truth. My son was learning. He was learning that violence solved problems. He was learning that rage meant power. He was learning that control meant love. I thought if I could just get Terence away from his father, he'd forget what he'd seen. I was wrong. Some lessons burn too deep. The final night with Charles is burned into my memory forever. 7-year-old Terence stood in our bedroom doorway in his pajamas. He was holding his stuffed bear. Charles had come home drunk that night. He was angry about being passed over for a promotion at work. I said the wrong thing. I don't even remember what it was. He backhanded me across the face. I fell. I hit the dresser. Blood poured from my nose. And Terence just stood there watching. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He didn't run to help me. He just watched with cold, learning eyes. He was absorbing it all. Charles saw him standing there. He froze. For one moment, shame crossed his face. Then anger replaced it. "Get back to bed," he roared at Terence. "This is between me and your mother." Terence turned around and walked away, calmly, like he'd just watched us discuss the weather. Like watching his father beat his mother was the most normal thing in the world. That's when I knew. My son was absorbing this as normal, not as trauma, but as instruction. This was what men did when they got frustrated. This was how problems got solved. This was what love looked like in his young mind. I filed for divorce the next morning. I took Terence with me. We moved in with my sister Angela. I started over with nothing but my job at the library and my desperate hope that love and stability would erase everything he'd learned from his father. For years, I thought I'd saved him. I put him in therapy immediately. I gave him stability. I showed him gentle love every single day. I worked double shifts at the library to afford good schools for him. I hired patient tutors. I took him to understanding counselors week after week. But teenagers don't lie about who they really are. Teenage Terence started showing his true self. He was expelled from middle school for fighting. He'd beaten another boy bloody over a perceived insult. He was suspended from high school for shoving a teacher who'd simply asked him to sit down. His therapist used words like learned behavior, modeled aggression, generational patterns. I used different words. I said, "My baby, he's hurting, he'll grow out of it." At 17 years old, he got his girlfriend pregnant. Her name was Jasmine. She was a sweet girl, barely 18 years old. She was working at a coffee shop and dreaming about going to college. When she told him she was pregnant, I watched his face. I watched it cycle through emotions and land on the same cold calculation I'd seen in 7-year-old Terence watching his father hit me. But he proposed to her. He seemed excited about the baby. I thought, I hoped, I prayed that fatherhood might change him the way it had broken Charles. Another mistake. History was repeating itself with cruel precision. I'd spent 17 years trying to therapy and love the violence out of him. But you can't heal what someone chooses to hold on to. 25-year-old Terence was married to Jasmine. He was the father of 2-year-old Maya. He was living in my basement, temporarily. What started as 3 months became 5 long years. He had no steady job. He was fired from warehouse work for anger issues. He'd shoved a co-worker during an argument. He quit his retail job for disrespect after his manager criticized his tardiness. He walked off a construction site because nobody talks to me that way. He failed his community college courses. He was too angry to focus. He blamed his professors for having it out for him. Every failure was someone else's fault. Every consequence was someone else's responsibility, never his. I supported them all. I paid for groceries, diapers, utilities, and car insurance. I was enabled by guilt. I had this desperate belief that if I just helped enough, gave enough, loved enough, he would finally stabilize. Instead, he grew entitled. My money became his right in his mind. My credit cards became his emergency fund, then his regular fund. My house became his kingdom, where he made all the rules. I watched Jasmine transform over those 5 years. The confident young woman who'd talked about becoming a teacher was slowly shrinking before my eyes. She walked on eggshells around him. She apologized for things that weren't her fault. She made excuses when Terence yelled at her. She covered bruises on her arms with long sleeves, even in the summer heat. It was the exact dance I'd performed with Charles. I was watching my past consume her future. I was watching history repeat itself right in front of me. One night, 3 months ago, I heard arguing downstairs. I heard Terence's voice. It was his father's voice coming out of his mouth. He was berating Jasmine for wasting money on expensive baby formula when the store brand was cheaper. His exact words were, "Are you stupid? Can't you do basic math?" I heard something crash. I rushed down the stairs. I found Jasmine crying on the floor with Maya wailing in her arms. There was a broken plate at her feet. Terence was standing over them both. His fist was still clenched. He saw me and stormed out of the house. I helped Jasmine clean up the broken pieces. I held her while she cried. I begged her to leave him. Her response came out in a whisper. But he's a good father when he's not stressed. And where would we go? We have no money, no family nearby. They were the same words I'd once said about Charles, the same justifications, the same prison I'd lived in. That's when I knew the truth. I hadn't saved my son from his father's legacy. I'd spent 20 years funding its continuation. I'd survived Charles's abuse only to enable Terence's. And worse than that, I'd brought Jasmine and baby Maya into the cycle I'd sworn to end. Recent months spiraled darker and darker. Financial pressure mounted on all of us. Terence had no job, no prospects, no plan whatsoever. He just had rage at a world that wouldn't give him what he felt he deserved. He demanded my credit cards to handle things. When I asked what things he needed to handle, he exploded at me. You don't trust me? Your own son? After everything I've been through? I gave them to him. I actually gave him my credit cards. I watched my bank statements fill with charges, expensive sneakers, video games, bar tabs. When I mentioned it to him, he accused me of keeping score and never supporting him. 2 weeks ago, I found him yelling at Maya, his own 2-year-old daughter. She'd spilled juice on his phone. He grabbed her little arm and yanked her up. He was screaming in her face. Jasmine swooped in immediately. She took Maya and locked herself in the bedroom with her. I confronted him right then and there. You cannot treat your daughter that way. You cannot. Don't tell me how to raise my kid. He shoved past me, hard enough that I stumbled backwards. That night, I heard him and Jasmine arguing downstairs. I heard things breaking. I heard Maya crying. I heard Jasmine pleading with him. When I knocked on their door, Terence yelled, "Mind your own business!" The next morning, Jasmine wore sunglasses inside the house. Her wrist had a bruise shaped like fingers. His fingers. I made a decision right then. I called my bank and reported my cards lost. I had them cancelled immediately. I changed all my passwords. I set up a new bank account he didn't have access to. I told myself I was setting boundaries, not abandoning him. I'd been wrong. Boundaries weren't enough. They never are with men who learned violence as love. Last night proved it. I thought setting boundaries would protect us. But you can't set boundaries with someone who sees your protection as betrayal. Last night, Terence came up from the basement at 11 p.m. I was in my bedroom with the door locked. That was something I'd started doing recently. He pounded on it hard. "Mom, open the door. I need to talk to you." "It's late, Terence. We can talk tomorrow." "I need money. Now." My card declined. "That's because I cancelled it. I told you I would pay for necessities directly." He kicked the door. He actually kicked it. The frame splintered under the force. "You can't just cut me off. I have a family to support." "Get a job, Terence. Stop spending my money on—" The door flew open. He'd kicked it completely off the hinges. He stood in my bedroom doorway. Rage poured off him like heat. I saw Charles standing there. I saw every nightmare I'd run from 20 years ago. "You're my mother." He advanced on me. "You're supposed to support me." I backed up with my hands raised. "Terence, calm down. We can discuss—" "I'm done discussing." He grabbed my wrist and twisted it until pain shot up my entire arm. "Where's your purse? Where's your new card?" I tried to pull away from him. He shoved me hard against the wall. My ribs screamed with pain. Downstairs, Maya started crying. I heard Jasmine's footsteps running up the stairs. "Terence, please, just stop." Jasmine's voice came from the hallway. He slapped me across the face. The sound cracked through the room. Sharp. Final. My lips split open. I tasted blood flooding my mouth. "How dare you change the credit card password and have them declined? I had bills to pay. I was embarrassed today in front of the cashier." "That's my card and money. I have every right over it." I shouted with tears and fear gripping all over me. Jasmine screamed. Terence froze. He stared at his hand like it belonged to someone else. In his eyes, I saw the briefest flash of horror. Then it was gone. It was replaced by justification. "You pushed me to this. Always judging, never supporting. Just like Dad said about you, you turn everyone against me. You made me do this." His father's words coming out of his mouth. His father's excuses. His father's hands on my face. He grabbed my purse from the dresser. He took my wallet, my cash, everything inside it. "I'll be back tomorrow," he snarled at me, "and you better have a better attitude." Then he left. The front door slammed. His car peeled out of the driveway. I sat on my bedroom floor. Blood dripped from my lip onto the carpet. Jasmine stood in the broken doorway with Maya in her arms. Both of them were crying. "I'm so sorry," Jasmine whispered. "I should have left him. I should have—" "No," I said. My voice sounded strange, distant, but calm. "I should have, 20 years ago, and I should have it again every day since then." I stood up slowly. My ribs screamed. My face throbbed with pain. But something inside me wasn't broken. It was clear. Crystal clear for the first time in decades. I picked up my phone, not to call Terence, not to beg him to come home, not to forgive him like I always did. I dialed 911. He hit me with his father's hands. But I'd spent 20 years teaching him he could. If you're still watching, hit that subscribe button, because what happened next changed everything. And let me ask you, have you ever had to choose between protecting yourself and protecting someone you love? Drop your answer in the comments. The police arrived within 15 minutes. 2 officers came to my door. One was an older woman named Officer Rachel Davis. The other was a younger man. They photographed my injuries under harsh lights. My split lip, the bruising across my cheekbone, the marks on my wrist, the bruises on my ribs. They took my statement, every single detail. Then they took Jasmine's statement. She'd witnessed it all. Officer Davis was gentle but thorough with her questions. "Do you want to press charges?" she asked me. "Yes," I said. There was no hesitation in my voice. My voice was steady and sure. "Your son lives here?" the younger officer asked. "In the basement. He left after assaulting me, but he'll come back tomorrow morning. He always does. He expects breakfast and forgiveness." Officer Davis nodded at me. "We'll have a detective follow up first thing in the morning. If you're willing to cooperate with the prosecution, we can be here when he returns. We'll arrest him on the spot." "I'm willing," I said. After they left, I couldn't sleep. I just sat at my kitchen table in the darkness. I touched my split lip. I thought about 7-year-old Terence watching his father hit me. I thought about every excuse I'd made for him over the years. Every time I'd choose peace over protection. Every moment I'd enabled him to become the very thing I'd tried to save him from. At dawn, I stood up. I made a decision. I opened the china cabinet. It held the fine porcelain my mother left me. I'd never used it. I'd been saving it for special occasions. I pulled out plates, cups, and served dishes. I set them on the table with deliberate care. This was the most important occasion of my life. I started cooking. I made his favorite breakfast. Belgian waffles with strawberries and whipped cream. Bacon, crispy the way he liked it. Scrambled eggs with cheese. Fresh orange juice. It was the exact meal I'd made him every birthday since he was 5 years old. I wasn't making it to forgive him. I was making it to remember one last time. To remember the little boy I'd tried to save before I let justice take the man he'd become. I wasn't feeding my son. I was saying goodbye to him. While the food was cooking, I made calls. First, I called Pastor Williams. He was the man who'd baptized Terence 25 years ago. He was the man who'd counseled me through my divorce from Charles. When he answered, I turned on my camera. His face went pale when he saw my bruises. "Vanessa?" "Did Terence?" "Yes," I said. "I need you to come this morning, not to pray for reconciliation, to witness what I should have done years ago, and to help his wife and daughter after he's gone." "I'll be there in 30 minutes, he said immediately. My second call was to my sister Angela. She answered on the first ring. She'd been expecting this call for 3 years. "It finally happened, didn't it?" "Yes. Can you come? And bring suitcases. Enough for Jasmine, Maya, and me." Already packing. I heard her moving in the background. "I have room for all of you, for as long as you need." Third, I climbed the stairs to the spare bedroom where Jasmine and Maya had slept. I knocked softly. Jasmine opened the door. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Maya slept on the bed behind her. "I need you to come downstairs when Terence gets here," I said gently. "The police are coming. He's going to be arrested. And I need you to see that you have choices. You and Maya can leave with me today. You don't have to stay in this cycle." Jasmine's hands shook. "What if he finds us? What if he—" "He'll be in custody. And after that there are restraining orders, protective services, and resources. My sister has room for all of us." I took her hands carefully. "Jasmine, what if Maya grows up thinking this is normal? What if she marries a man just like him because this is the only love she's ever seen? I let that happen to my son. I won't let it happen to my granddaughter." Tears streamed down Jasmine's face. She looked at her sleeping daughter. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." At 7:30 a.m., Detective James Bray arrived. Officer Davis had briefed him. He was in his mid-50s with kind eyes that had clearly seen too many domestic violence cases. He photographed my injuries again in natural light. He took detailed notes. He reviewed the statements from last night. "Based on the evidence and your statement, I have probable cause for arrest," he said. "When does he usually return?" "Around 8. He stays at his friend's place when we fight, then comes back in the morning expecting breakfast and forgiveness. Like nothing happened." "Not this time," Detective Bray said. He positioned himself in the living room, out of sight from the kitchen entrance. "I'll wait." Pastor Williams arrived next. He was carrying his Bible and brochures, domestic violence resources, family counseling information, legal aid contacts, shelter information. He came with preparation, not just prayer. He embraced me carefully. He was mindful of my injuries. "You're doing the right thing, the hard thing, but the right thing." Angela arrived last. Her car was already packed with suitcases in the trunk. She held me tight. "You're so brave." "Finally." "Not brave," I said. "Just done." I'd spent 25 years protecting my son from consequences. This morning, consequences were coming home for breakfast. Subscribe now because you need to see what happened when Terence walked through that door. And here's my question for you. Would you have the strength to turn in your own child to save them from themselves? Tell me in the comments. 7:55 a.m. The breakfast sat on the fine china with steam still rising from it. Detective Bray waited silently in the living room. Pastor Williams sat at the table. Angela stood by the door. Jasmine came downstairs carrying Maya. Both of them were dressed. Their bags were packed. They were ready to leave forever. I stood at the stove, staring at the meal I'd prepared. The last breakfast. 8 a.m. I heard his car pull into the driveway. I heard his key in the lock. The front door opened. Terence walked in whistling. He was actually whistling. He was wearing new sneakers. They were probably bought with my stolen credit card last night. He rounded the corner into the kitchen, expecting his usual kingdom. Then he saw us. All of us. His eyes darted around the room. Confusion came first, then calculation, then fear. "What's this? Some kind of intervention?" He laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Really, Mum? You called the church on me?" I spoke. My voice was steady. "Sit down, Terence." "I'm not sitting down. This is my house," I corrected him. "You live in my basement. There's a difference. Now sit down." Something in my tone made him hesitate. He sat down, slowly. His eyes moved between all of us. They landed on Jasmine and Maya. "Babe, what's going on? Why's everyone here? Why are you holding bags?" Detective Bray stepped into view from the living room. His badge was visible on his belt. Terence went pale. "Terence Clark," Detective Bray said calmly and professionally. "I'm Detective Bray with the county police. I need to ask you some questions about an assault that occurred at this residence last night around 11 p.m. Terence's charm activated instantly. He smiled. He put his hands up. He used a reasonable tone. "Assault? What assault? We had a little argument, sure, but assault? Come on, that's a little argument." I touched my split lip. I pulled down my collar to show the bruises on my collarbone where he'd shoved me. I showed my wrist. It was still marked with finger-shaped bruises. "These are from a little argument." His face cycled through expressions: denial, anger, fear, calculation. He tried charm toward Jasmine. "Babe, come on, tell them. Tell them it wasn't that bad. Tell them I didn't mean—" Jasmine's voice was small but clear. "You hit her, Terence. I watched you hit your mother. Maya watched you." The toddler whimpered in Jasmine's arms. She pressed her face against her mother's shoulder, away from her father. Terence's mask cracked. "You're taking her side? I'm your husband. We have vows." "You're your father's son," I said quietly. "I set this table with the dishes I was saving for the day you'd become a good man. The dishes my mother gave me for special occasions. I thought, I prayed, that one day I'd use them to celebrate your success, your kindness, your growth. Instead, I'm using them to show you what you've destroyed. Not plates, Terence. People. Me. Your wife. Your daughter's entire future." He stared at the fine china. He stared at the elaborate breakfast. He was finally understanding. "Mum, please. I'm sorry. I was stressed. I wasn't thinking." "Your father said the exact same words to me. The exact same excuses. I forgave him until I couldn't anymore. Then I forgave you until I couldn't anymore. I'm done forgiving violence and calling it love." He thought he'd come home to forgiveness and breakfast. Instead, he came home to justice and consequences. Detective Bray stood up. "Terence Clark, based on the evidence, witness statements, and your mother's testimony, I'm placing you under arrest for domestic assault and battery." He read Terence his rights while he cuffed him. Terence tried everything in those moments. Anger first. "You're really doing this? To your own son?" Then victimhood. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. No job, no money, trying to provide." Then threats. You'll regret this. All of you. When I get out, I stood up. I walked close to him, close enough to see my reflection in his eyes. The only thing I regret is waiting this long. Your father taught you that violence solves problems. I taught you that mothers forgive everything. Together, we created a monster. I can't undo what your father did to you, but I can stop enabling what you've become. Detective Bray walked him toward the door. Terence looked back at Maya one last time. The toddler watched him with wide, frightened eyes. They were the same eyes I'd seen in 7-year-old Terence watching Charles get arrested all those years ago. Maya, he said. His voice was breaking. Daddy loves... Don't, Jasmine said firmly. She was finding strength I'd never heard before. Don't tell her you love her while you're in handcuffs for hurting her grandmother. Show her you love her by getting help. Real help. The door closed behind them. The squad car pulled away. The house fell silent, except for Maya's soft crying. Pastor Williams spoke first. There are programs, batterer intervention programs, trauma-informed therapy. If he completes them, truly completes them and changes, there's a path forward. But that's years away. Right now, you three need to heal. He spread brochures on the table beside the untouched breakfast. Legal aid for Jasmine's divorce, domestic violence advocates, counselling services, protective order applications. Angela put her arm around me. My car's packed. Let's go home. We gathered the last essentials, photos, documents, Maya's favourite toys. We left everything else. Pastor Williams would handle closing up the house. He would pack our things properly later. As we walked out, I looked back one final time at the breakfast table. The fine china was still set. The food was untouched and cold. It was the meal I'd made to remember the boy I'd loved before saying goodbye to the man he'd become. That breakfast wasn't about feeding him. It was about finally letting him go hungry for consequences. If you're enabling someone's violence by staying silent, you're not helping them. You're teaching them they can keep hurting people without consequences. Subscribe if this story resonated with you. We share stories of breaking cycles and choosing survival every week. Comment below. What would you have done at that breakfast table? Would you have had the courage to do what I did?